Good morning, Pastor Sam here with your verse of the day for Gospel Gunslingers. Somebody else on the forum posted this verse out of Isaiah, the first chapter, and it's so pertinent that I'm just going to stop and I'm going to dwell on it for a moment. Our verse of the day is Isaiah 1.26. And I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. That's 27. This has never been fulfilled. This is a prophecy that is out there for us, and it's in the first chapter of Isaiah. It's kind of a huge deal. So let's look at it and see what it says. If we look into the history of the Bible, right after Joshua and the conquest is the book of Judges, and for probably 300 years, approximately 400 years, Israel did not have kings. Finally, they begged for a king, and those things were written ahead of time in the law and by Samuel the prophet and some others of what would happen when they choose a king. What the Lord said when they chose a king is he said, you have rejected me as king. So God was really happy with this period of the judges. And you can find that whole book. It's one of the books of great wars of the Bible, and you can see how the nation was turned over to their enemies every time that they would erect idolatry and get into all kinds of disgusting sexual sin, which was involved the sin, the sex, the idolatry. It was all together, and reformers would rise up. God would bring them up, and they'd liberate militarily them from their enemies, and then they'd tear down all these idols and things. So God says he will restore that as at the first. And that never happened after the conquest of Israel by Babylon. So this is something that we have to look forward to. Here we are, 2018, in the US of A, in America. Guess what? God says, I will restore your judges as at the first. So that's for all of us. If we want to look into the law, if we want to become students and masters in the Lord's law and have our senses exercised to discern good and evil, God will overshadow us and indwell us with power to destroy the wicked and to destroy sin out of the land. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. Really, the idea of converts throughout the Old Testament is a minor theme. It's prophesied, but there's not a whole lot to it. But then when Jesus came, he opened the door for the whole world, obviously and openly. And people like me, hey, we're not from Abraham's loins, but we have the opportunity to become converts and to be redeemed in judgment. Now we're going to go into Corinthians tomorrow and talk about where the New Testament says that those who are of little account in the church are supposed to judge sexual sin. But I want to just touch one more thing up a little bit higher in Isaiah the first. Please get your King James Bible out and read this whole chapter. Verse 17, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. Then in verse 23, the widow and the fatherless come up again. Why is this important? Because if dad wasn't there to whoop somebody's butt, the first thing they do is start sidling in on little girls, on little boys. Start sidling in on a woman who has no means of protecting herself and no means of making a living. In these days, it was kind of assumed that a widow was doomed to be a beggar and to be a prostitute because the men did the work, the men worked the fields. So this, just understand, I'm not gonna talking about the righteousness or unrighteousness of those clear gender roles, but one thing I will say for certain is when the Bible talks about the widow and the fatherless, that is a euphemism for sexual sin, sexual sin, sexual sin, what's overrun our country and what we are going to use the sword to defend.